I noticed your plug all the way through. It's like, I'll be there just
Are you here? Can you just sit by me at least at the beginning? Or we'll sit right up here. I'll move my seat. I'll be up here. Where's Ender? You want to sit? We have Steve Vernon sitting right there, and then the coach passing it to us.
Yeah, we do the last week of spring break. So we have to come back early, and we're actually hosting it. So yeah, we got the buffer. I think there's like 25 schools. So yeah, I'm really excited for it.
That's exciting. Yeah. Is that the last one for the year?
So it's like playoff season now. So like if we qualify out of it, then we go to nationals. So it like could potentially be our last one.
Well, it's not
but hopefully not. You're back. Yes, hey.
What's that? I take the garbage out, so those are serious. Well, they sound like that. Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
So we're going to stick you on the bed and turn that good.
I don't know anything. I've been part of nothing. I'm just here to hear these decorations.
I think it's probably like 8. Oh my god. So,
I'll let Mayor Whaley do that. Yeah. I think she's doing a great job. Are you going to be answering questions?
No. We're going to try to avoid it. We may be asking this
As soon as we're here to get visual cues like you're off base, try a different response.
Bring it back. Thanks, Rodney.
What are you doing for
That's it.
Yeah. No break for us. Keep plugging away. Are you sticking around here? You working more? Sleep one day?
I'm going out of town for a while.
Okay.
I have family in the beach, so.
Oh, wow.
I have a question.
I'm going out of town in a long time.
Yeah. Oh, this one beach is awesome.
This is where we were told.
You want to go over there? This way.
Or I can give you, you're doing well. Not so much. I'll give you the fusion presidents, right?
Keep my eyes on you.
My recommendation would be no. None of us know who you are.
Fancy, super fancy name flashes from we're just waiting for to get our set up on live stream. But I'm not going to go too far. Flyer news here. Guys, this is major. Yes.
All right. Hey, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Brian Barakin.
I'm Erica Schowski.
And we are the president and the vice president of Student Government Association. We wanted to welcome you all to this sort of this month's Campus Clarity event. For those of you that have been to Campus Clarity events in the past, they're a new thing this year started by SGA, whose really sole focus is to bring members of the administration and the students together to talk about some of the most controversial and the most important things going on this campus, to increase transparency and increase clarity, hence the name of the event. So tonight's Campus Clarity is going to be focused on a few different things. It's going to be focused on alcohol, it's going to be focused on public safety, it's going to be focused on St. Patrick's Day, celebrations like that, and it's going to be focused sort of more generally on the relationship between students and the administration. When Erica and I were running last year for student body president and vice president, one of our main goals was to sort of reduce negativity on campus. Our slogan was positive people for positive change, and we think we've done a good job with that. However, there's always more work that can be done. As I'm sure all of you are aware, the recent decision by the administration and by housing to limit our comeback time until 3 p.m. Was taken very negatively on campus. And we had a lot of work to do as a student government association in combating that and in sort of trying to gain clarity and trying to gain that transparency. Members of student government reached out to you all. We collected over 28 pages of DMs, questions, concerns, emails, complaints, and we literally handed Steve Herndon that 30-page document, and we said, here are the concerns of the students. Here is what can be done. We had 2 meetings with the members of the administration about that email and about that decision. The first meeting was very intense. I kind of broke down a little bit, and it was very focused on the negative reaction of the students and how if this 3 p.m. deadline is kept, it's going to be dangerous, it's going to be reckless. Students are going to have 40s at 4 p.m. rather than 40s at 4 a.m. It's going to be dangerous. They're going to party at the nighttime when there's an increased risk of criminal activity and sexual violence. And I was very worried about that, as was all of SGA. But that 3 p.m. decision has stayed. So our second meeting, we shifted gears and we said, okay, what as an organization, what as a student body can we do from here? And we sat down with these three that are sitting here, with Steve Herndon, and we sort of talked about what that relationship between students and the administration is going to look like moving forward and going into next year. So the administration has agreed on 3 very important things. First off, they will involve students in decisions that affect students. This was very big. This is them saying they will make more of an effort to reach out to students when these decisions that are a little bit controversial, are a little bit negative, are being made. Second, the members of the administration agreed that they will be more prompt in responding to student concerns. With this 3 p.m. decision, there was an FAQ document that was put out by Housing, but the issue was a lot of students really didn't know where that FAQ document was or how to access it. So they've agreed to do that, and we're really just excited for how this relationship can improve going forward. So with that, thank you all for being here. This is not only the last event of SGA, PATH eligibility-wise for this semester or for the year, but it's also the last PATH event of the year. It's over. You guys did it. Congrats. Thank you guys thank you to all of you who have come to our events before and have come to this event tonight. It means a lot. It shows a lot of you that you're willing to take the time to sit down and have these conversations. The format of tonight's event, from now until 8 o'clock, SGA members have questions of the administration that have been written by SGA, and we have consulted with various students from all grade levels informing these questions. They got a little bit of a bite to them. Some of them are a bit controversial, a bit hard. We're excited to ask them. We're excited to hear what the administration says. Throughout tonight's event, if you guys can look at the screens that you see here, these are the social media handles for SGA. Throughout tonight's event, you can DM, you can instant message, you can tweet at us. Our Vice President of Communication, Ryan Pearson, is going to look through all of those and sort of select the most repetitive questions, the questions that seem to be the most important. At 8 o'clock, we'll take a break. You guys are good to go. You guys are good to get PATH credit. If you want to stay after, we will have the students that have asked those questions stay, and we'll actually have audience-based questions for the members of the administration. That will go until about 8:30, and all members of the administration have agreed to stay here after. If you guys have any personal questions for them, they'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to you guys about that. So thank you all again. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Erica. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so on our panel tonight, we have Chris Schramm, the Dean of Students, Phil Fischer, the Vice President, and then Chief Chatman, and then also in the audience, President Spina's here, Provost Benson, and then Steve Herndon from Housing. And so after, you can ask them any questions you may have, and then I'll get started with the first question. This is for Chief Chatman. Has the way that UD polices a student neighborhood changed over the last couple of years?
Not really. The laws are the same, the expectations are the same. And so the manner in which we police hasn't changed in terms of enforcement. What has changed is our focus on engagement with students. We believe that the more we engage with you and you with us, the safer the neighborhood is, for a couple of reasons. One, if we engage with you intentionally, then there's more organic conversations that can occur. Very recently, a student had a question about police activity that he saw in the middle of the night and felt comfortable enough picking up the phone and reaching out and calling, calling me and asking, hey, can you give me some information about what occurred? And we're glad to. We're transparent with that. But what it does for us on a more global level is, if you feel comfortable reaching out to us, you will call, you'll call us when you see something that's suspicious, when something isn't the norm. And those are the behaviors that we want to hear about more in the moment so that we can keep the neighborhood safe.
Okay, so I have the second question, and first, hi, my name is Maggie Ward, and I'm a junior class senator in the Student Government Association. And my question is specifically for you, Chris. So from an administrator's perspective, how do you feel about the relationship between students and administrators? And if you feel that it's negative, what do you think can be done to improve this relationship?
You know, I think that the relationship is twofold, right? I think that if you were to ask individuals about some of the relationships, they would say it's pretty good. I think when we get into a big group, I think it shifts, right? Whether that's a community effort or some group think. I do have to say this though about this question. I only get asked this question at St. Patrick's Day. I think that's really interesting. Nobody's asking that question other times, whether it's break or whether it's we make the decision to close school because of inclement weather, right? The question comes at times when we are at odds. So when we are at different places and making decisions from different lenses, then the relationship is abysmal. How's that? Oh. So, as I was saying, so when you've got these relationships, you have these issues, and I start waving my arms. When we have these issues and we have these relationships, right? When the issues come about, and when we're at odds, then the question is, the relationship is terrible. Where I can count, I mean, I can speak for myself, but I can also see, knowing from other administrators, the emails that we get, the phone calls that we get, the hey, can you help me? Knowing students' names as we walk across campus. So, is the relationship fractured? Or is the relationship troubled? Yes, it's troubled when any relationships are troubled when we are at odds and we are in conflict. And we're in conflict. But in our good Marian spirit, here we sit today. Here we sit today on a Sunday with the roads crappy, and I will be here Sunday on March 14th as I say my Hail Marys. We're still here sitting together at the end of the day. Is the relationship challenged? Stressed? Yes. But it is one that we're in it together.
This next question is also for Officer Chatman. We're just curious to know what current initiatives are in place to increase campus safety.
Ooh, we will be here till about 9 o'clock. Every day that I've been here, I try to make the campus safer. Again, the focus is on the engagement that we have with the students. So probably the highlight would be the community engagement team that we have enacted this year. We have 2 officers who are committed to community engagement activities. They are available to you for presentations. They come to student events, tabling events. We put on a vast array of training such as Stop the Bleed, Active Shooter, Situational Awareness. And those are initiatives that are changing the dynamic of how we structure our patrol. We also have public safety advocates. They were introduced to the public about a month ago now. These are you, students, who want to do exactly what we're doing tonight. That is, reduce barriers of communication, increase cooperation between students and the police. And there are a significant number of things that we are doing, such as having hours at 461 Kefauver. I think tomorrow night there's a dinner in the North Student neighborhood. We had a walkthrough in the North Student neighborhood Thursday and Friday to knock on some doors because we are listening to students who had concerns about police presence and patrol in the North Student neighborhood. And what we're doing in terms of initiatives is we're creating more ways in which our ears are open to you and we hear exactly what your questions and concerns are.
So I have the next one over here. So this one's for you, Mr. Fischer. So have the guidelines regarding alcohol and the alcohol policies changed over the past couple of years? And have you seen a rise of issues surrounding students being taken to the hospital or student-related injuries due to alcohol?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, we, as a result of us experiencing as an institution, an increase in high-risk drinking of students resulting in an increase in hospitalizations for excessive consumption of alcohol, we were very concerned for your safety. And that was our number one and is our number one priority. And so as a result of that, we did make some modest changes, or actually some changes to our alcohol policy that specifically spoke to high-risk drinking and prohibiting them. So examples could be chugging or using any kind of apparatus to accelerate alcohol consumption, drinking games, things along those lines. And so those were specifically addressed in the alcohol policy, and we can't condone them, and so we have prohibited them. So I would say that was probably one of the biggest changes we made to the alcohol policy over the course of the past 5 years.
Following up with that, do you think the problem with alcohol on this campus is increasing and decreasing, or decreasing? And what I mean by problem is the amount of students that we see that are taken to the Miami Valley or that are transported due to alcohol-related issues, the amount of students that we have getting involved in cadre and alcohol rehab. What is the situation looking like?
So we have not seen a decrease in hospitalizations, and I would say our numbers of students who violate the alcohol policy or who need intervention through a cadre is pretty much about the same. I would say that one of the things during the fall that we were pleased to see is we were concerned with high volume activity in the neighborhood. Very, very large crowds gathering on Saturdays, engaging in drinking activities and high-risk drinking activities, resulting in property damage, actually personal injuries to students themselves, and hospitalizations. What I would say, and I think my colleagues up here would agree, was that we saw a bit of a de-escalation in the volume of that, I would say, during the fall semester, which we were very pleased to see. And I think much of that had to do with the efforts of public safety, really trying to go out and build relationships with students and helping them understand, hey, it's okay to have fun, it's okay to, as long as you're doing it responsibly. And so a lot of those messages, I think, really have started to really be absorbed in a positive way by some of the students. And so that's one thing I can say that we saw over this past fall semester.
And Brian, your question is kind of anecdotal. So just to give you an idea, I get an alcohol report that's an internal document once a week, and I received that report this morning. Last week we averaged taking one student per day to the hospital for overconsumption, and as from my lens, that's far, far, far too many. That's not responsible. That's dangerous. That's reckless, and it's quite frankly scary. But I say that, I typically don't share that information publicly, but I know we're talking anecdotally. Are we thinking we're seeing a rise? Are we thinking we're seeing a decrease? That's just to give you some context behind what we're seeing and what we're concerned about.
The next question is for you, Chief Chatman. How does the medical amnesty program work, and have you seen an increase in its use recently?
I'm actually going to defer a medical amnesty question to our Dean of Students.
Okay. So, this is one of the programs I am most proud of for the university. We've been doing this kind of medical amnesty since 1994. It's not a new program. Lots of folks think it's new. It's that, the Good Samaritan kind of philosophy. It used to be called mitigating circumstances. So that's when a student calls on another student who they're very concerned about, and they've either have passed out or they're throwing up in the bathroom, they don't know what to do with them, and they're nervous, and they know it's beyond their capabilities of taking care of them. They'll call public safety, and that person will not be in any trouble or any conduct for that situation. But what happens is they'll end up seeing someone nonetheless, saying, what does this mean? What was going on in your life? How can we help you? And perhaps there might be a pattern of behavior that we can identify at that time, but the cadre office then reaches out. Is that helpful?
Actually, a follow-up on that.
Sure.
Has there been an increase in that this year?
I don't know. Those numbers have always been pretty consistent, with a few more, a few less from year to year.
Hi, I have the next question over here. Hi. So because spring break Day lands when the same time period as spring break, is the administration preparing any alternate programming, any alternate activities for the Monday when students come back, or that following weekend? And if so, what exactly would those programs be?
So, for those of you that have been here know that have hot dogs and pretzels and such, the time to come back on Sunday, classes are the next day. There's not going to be any of that. It's a time for you to, as you are on Sunday nights now, preparing for your class on Monday. But there will be, what we think and hope will work is more of the small group approach, right? Well, your RAs will be greeting you and welcoming you, and there'll be movies and things on in the residence halls. But the truth is, we're crystal clear about our expectations for St. Patrick's Day. Finding alternate events is not a difficult thing on this campus, as many of you know. We're just hoping folks make the right decision.
Hi, my name is Jacob Troutwine. I have a question for Chief.
Can you stand up?
Yeah, yes.
Where are you?
Hi. So, my question is in regards to the North Student neighborhood, particularly in the area around Fairgrounds. Are there any efforts to increase public safety's presence in the area? And if so, what are these efforts going to look like into the future as well?
So I want to be clear, are you asking about the North Student neighborhood? Or are you asking about Fairgrounds? Because we see that there are two different things for us.
Fairgrounds.
Okay, Fairgrounds for us is, the Fairgrounds is in the city of Dayton. It is not in our patrol area. What confuses students very often is there is something called the board, and every police officer in the county can see where every other police officer is and what they are assigned to. In addition to that, we can hear the city of Dayton's radio traffic, and the city of Dayton can hear our radio traffic. And what tends to happen is when we hear the city of Dayton dispatched to something in the Fairgrounds neighborhood that sounds remotely related to our students, through our mutual aid agreement, our officers are going to go over there and assist, because we have authority through this agreement to respond and have jurisdiction in their area when needed, and they have the jurisdiction to come onto campus when we need them. So what tends to happen is calls that occur in the Fairgrounds neighborhood, our officers, if we hear it and we're not on any other call, will go over and respond. Students will see us there and responding and thinking that that's our area, when in fact it's the city of Dayton and we're there on a mutual aid response. So what we are doing is we have a significant amount of communication with the city of Dayton. Our relationship is stronger than it's ever been. And when we hear these concerns, we share these concerns with the city of Dayton, and they are aware of it, and they have said that, oh, thanks for letting us know, we'll provide extra patrols in that area.
So sort of just a follow-up to that as well. Is there a significant delay in the time that it takes for you to receive information in the city?
His question was, is there a significant delay in us receiving the information? No, we receive the information in real time. However, our response to any call at any time on any day, even in our area, depends on what we are on at the time. If we are on some other call that is related to someone's health or safety, and there's a property-related call, such as I found the window broke, we're going to finish the health and safety call first before responding there. But it kind of all depends on what's going on at the moment, but the information is transmitted in real time.
Hi, my name is Tony Guo. I have a question for Mr. Bill Fischer. So does the university have the intention to discontinue the tradition of St. Patrick's Day on campus?
So during periods of time or years when the university is in session over St. Patrick's Day, we have no plans to shut down students from wanting to celebrate responsibly over St. Patrick's Day. And so, celebrating responsibly is something that we've talked about many, many years. And we've talked to students about ways to do that. And so, it wouldn't be our practice to just shut down all forms of fun, celebratory fun, as long as it's being done responsibly. And so we have certainly seen many years where there's been responsible celebration of St. Patrick's Day.
I want to add one thing. So I appreciate this, you know, that the tradition or discontinue. We don't put on St. Patrick's Day, right? So so we're kind of caught in a really, again, going back to the relationship, right? It lends itself to the cyclical nature of this relationship. The university doesn't host a St. Patrick's Day party. We are in a position of trying to control, which is never a good place to be with college students, right? I have a 15-year-old, trust me. I can't control him either. But we're in a situation where we've got to control a tradition that I can assure you, I've been here a number of years, I didn't create. So asking that question is a little bit, you know, do you beat your wife? I mean, I struggle with it because I don't put on this. We're in a position where we have to control this so that for the safety and security of our students, our staff, and our institutional reputation, that is your degree.
So, the last of these sort of pre-scripted questions, the ones that were written by SGA, is kind of a follow-up to that. So, for those of you that are unaware, it is sort of SGA's responsibility, it's in our mission statement actually, to not only serve as the primary advocate for the student body, but to also be the primary mediator between students and the administration. Within that role, and based off of what we've presented you in the meetings that we've had, based off of what we've heard from all of you and from all of the students, how do you envision a St. Patrick's Day celebration that fulfills the wants of the student body, but also the needs and the control of the administration? Or do you envision that at all?
So, as the administration who doesn't create the event, I think that it kind of happens every Saturday, right? Why is this so different? Why do we start throwing rocks and bottles and fireworks, and because it's the tradition? I don't know, but there was a couple parties this weekend, right?
And if I can clarify that, from the student's perspective, I'll stand up, I guess.
Yes.
From the student's perspective, St. Patrick's Day is something that gets the student body excited. For the wrong or for the right reasons. I mean, I remember when I was a student that was looking at colleges, I remember hearing about St. Patrick's Day at the University of Dayton. I remember there was a quote from some TV late night show host saying that there's 3 places to be on St. Patrick's Day: Chicago, Dublin, and the University of Dayton. And it was something that I look forward to. And I've been on campus for 3 years now. My first year here, it was still, had the recklessness that comes with day drinking on Saturdays and things like that, but it was still a fun event, and I think for the most part, students were very responsible in that first year. Last year, obviously, we saw something that was completely unacceptable, and I think myself, and I think SJ, and I think a lot of the student body understands how out of hand that was, and understand that that can't happen again, but I think there's something about it that is different. I think it's something that students look forward to every year. It's something where you know that you'll walk out on Lowe's and see every friend that you've made in the past year there. You'll walk down and you'll see students enjoying that community spirit to the best of their ability. Now, whether we've seen that can be irresponsible and can be reckless, but I think it is different.
So what I do know is in 2006 and 2007, we did have spring break for a while. And then the years you're talking about, the tradition did happen. But what's happened is it's continued to escalate, right? It's gotten bigger and bigger.
I don't think there's a question that in the United States, people want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And I could provide countless examples of how it's celebrated responsibly and also examples of how it's not celebrated responsibly. I'm going to go back to what I said, and that is, we don't have an issue if students want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. We're asking that it be done responsibly. And last year was a classic example of how there was complete disregard for the community. And so celebrations of St. Patrick's Day are plentiful. It involves Irish step dancing. It involves going out to an Irish bar and having a couple of beers and listening to an Irish band. I could go on about all the ways that people celebrate St. Patrick's Day responsibly. And there have been years here where we've had St. Patrick's Day and it has been responsible. But there's also been years of late where it hasn't been.
It's escalating.
It is escalating every year. And last year was clearly the tipping point.
So moving on, that is sort of the end of the questions that SGA had. Feel free to keep on sending us tweets, DMing us with any of your questions regarding St. Patrick's Day, housing, spring break, anything like that. We do have a question from the audience, and it is about St. Patrick's Day, which is why I'm asking now. With St. Patrick's Day being something that occurs every year and always has been here, being such a tradition on campus, why does the 3 p.m. rule really plan on stopping? And do you expect that students will want to retaliate or will retaliate with the 3 p.m. decision?
The 3 p.m. decision was made because of the dangerous situation that occurred last year. We are trying to maximize the safety of our university community. We're trying to make sure that our students that are coming back on Sunday are safe. And so, because it's a return from spring break, there are going to be cars and many parents returning their sons and daughters to the university on that day. And so, we have to establish the conditions within which that can happen in the safest way possible.
Okay, here's another audience question. Do you see us going back to a lottery system for housing?
We do not see that happening. And in fact, we had, quite frankly, how we shifted away from the lottery system was that many students complained about it constantly. Now, you weren't here for that, but that is true.
Next audience question, and this is relevant to housing as well. Is there a way, this year with spring break and St. Patrick's Day falling over spring break, is there a way to get notified about spring break housing approvals sooner than March 6th?
I'll let to my housing colleagues. I think it's always in our interest to do earlier than later. I think that's kind of a rule of thumb. Sometimes the reality of those circumstances don't always, the practicality doesn't always work out that way. One of the things is housing is a beast on this campus, right? How folks, the ways in which we are all committed to where you're all living and how you're all living, and it is absolutely something that is very important on this campus, and we want to go about it the best way we possibly can, and to assure that we have all our ducks in a line. And unfortunately, sometimes assuring the accuracy takes more time than we would like. But it is duly noted that the rule of thumb is earlier communication is always better.
And I would say, yes, earlier communication is better, and so this is also the first time in my 10 years that we've had a spring break. And so this is a year that we are, learning as we go and doing the best that we can, and so all of this feedback is taken into consideration for continuous improvement.
I just have a follow-up on this. So this wasn't asked by a student, but I think one of the issues is, and I've talked to the three of you about this in our meetings, I think that when the decision was announced last year that St. Patrick's Day would fall over spring break, I think that took precedent in a lot of the students' minds, and I don't think students were aware or fully comprehended that it would be a blackout period and that they wouldn't actually be able to be on campus because at least the students that are on campus now don't have a memory of spring break being a blackout period. They weren't expecting it. And when they got the email from housing saying that, there's going to be this 300-mile radius, you can't stay on campus unless you have a reason or you fell under that criteria, you cannot be on campus at all. Do you think that there could have been a better job communicating that with students? Do you think something went wrong, or there could have been anything that was done differently to get that message instilled in students' heads?
Yes.
What do you think?
Whether that was the strategy for the communication, the rationale for the decision, I think there was a number of things we've sat down and we have talked. I've got Mr. Froelich back there, Mr. Herndon back up here. We have sat down and said, here's the places that we can and should and know to do better. We've spoken to our colleagues in public relations who said, you know, we can be of assistance to you. So there's no question that it could have been better and stronger.
Okay, thank you. Here is another audience question. Are there any efforts to increase patrols around the flyer bus service? I've heard of reports that people who aren't a part of the university are using the service more than our students, and that could potentially be discouraging students to use it.
I haven't heard that report, but again, what we are hoping will happen is our focus on community engagement with you is so that we can create that loop, that feedback loop. What's dangerous that occurs on campus is if students see something, perceive something, and they talk among themselves and don't come forward or don't feel comfortable coming forward, then a misperception can grow, rumors can grow, or a situation that could be addressed is not addressed. And so I would welcome anything related to your safety to be brought to my attention. I do want to, while I have the microphone for a second, I do just want to say one thing, and it's not to pick on Brian, because Brian knows every time I see him, we hug each other, we love each other, we high-five and everything else. The purpose of Campus Clarity is to bring us together and address these issues in a responsible way. And I applaud you guys for creating this space. I applaud the intention behind this. And maybe it was just a word, but I got a little triggered when I heard the word retaliate. If the word retaliate is in the students' vernacular related to something that they don't agree with, we're behind the 8 ball on all of this effort that we're putting forward. It's not about retaliation. And when you said, and I'm picking on you, you said that you envision coming out of your door and you seeing everyone that you met this year and you can celebrate with them and all. That's what it's about. If that happens, we're happy. If you guys on St. Patrick's Day or any other day are in community with each other, and if it's over a beer and you're old enough to drink it and you're not doing any behavior that's putting other students at risk or police officers at risk, we are happy, we're smiling, we want that, we celebrate that. But if the word retaliation is in the students' vernacular for anything, we're behind the 8 ball.
Thank you. The next question is relevant to the spring break and the blackout period for it. So a student asked, will I get in trouble for being on campus if I'm commuting to my on-campus job during spring break?
No.
No.
That's the only one left. No. You're always entitled to public space, so if you're in a public space, you're entitled to do that.
And then this next question is about the medical amnesty program. In terms of medical amnesty, what happens if Dayton Police is called as well? I've seen occasions where both are called, but then there are concerns because a third party called the Dayton Police.
It's all good.
The same approach is taken. I don't know why I'm using this because it doesn't work.
It's the same approach. The Dayton Police would certainly defer to us on that issue in terms of how we handle that situation as it relates to the disciplinary process.
On campus. Now, if they charge them through the county or the city, we don't have any control of that, but they usually defer to the university to take appropriate actions.
This is another audience question regarding the police and St. Patrick's Day. Will the SWAT team be here as we're getting back to campus, or are they, hopefully they won't have to be called or won't be here, but are they gonna be based here?
No, I think yours
working? We have a plan in place that is centered around management, and management is more the hands-off. What management says for us is we are prepared for you guys to celebrate in a manner that I just described. Celebrating responsibly, interacting with friends that you met over the year, and if you're old enough to drink, drinking responsibly. That's what we're geared up for, and that's what we're planning for. But we are And it would be foolhardy for us not to be resourced to respond to anything that occurs. And so I think we have a plan in place that situates us and resources us to respond to any situation that occurs in the neighborhood. And I think for anyone that's concerned about SWAT or anything like that, I think rightfully so, you may understand that I have spoken out vehemently about how our officers were treated. I spoke out about how unacceptable it was for us to be assaulted in the manner in which we were assaulted. But I don't want it lost that so much of our focus was, as those things were occurring, you guys were in harm's way. Students were at risk of serious physical harm when rocks and bottles were being thrown. And so I don't want it lost on any of the conversation that that's our primary goal is your safety. And so what happens on St. Patrick's Day is largely determined by you, and I am hoping and I'm expecting you guys to police yourselves. You know what you want. It's clear you guys want to have a day of celebration. We want you to have that. And so if you are at a party, at a gathering, and you see someone acting out of accordance to the rules and expectations, what we are expecting is for you guys to go over and tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, knock it off. That's not what we're here for. It causes all of this. And so we're hoping that you police yourselves. But again, we are resourced to respond to whatever we need to respond to keep you safe.
I think at this point we've kind of flown through the questions, and I really don't want this to just be Erica and I asking questions. If the three of you are comfortable with it, can we just open it up to have the members of the audience actually ask questions rather than sending them to us and getting Erica and I to read them? Okay, so just show of hands. Anybody around here, so I don't have to walk over? Okay, I'll walk over there. Okay, we got one right here.
How's it going? My name's Eddie. I have a question about medical amnesty. So what I've heard is, and I just want to confirm if this is true or not true, it's only for the person who calls and then the victim. But if I found like an unconscious person in the ghetto and I was with a group of friends, I'm having like one person dial public safety while I'm checking his vitals and going through a list of number of things on what to do. So would that be covered with my friends that are helping in that person's medical interest?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have a question?
Hi, my name is Mike Sondermeyer. This one's for Chief Chatman. You said the enforcement hasn't changed over the past couple of years, but what is the rule on people gathering yachts? Because I know during Halloween, large day drink, houses got written up for just people being on lawn.
Well, I said the rules hadn't changed and our enforcement hasn't changed. We are paying particular attention to what we are presented with. And so one of the things that causes some anxiety and confusion among students is if House A and House B are both having a party. What the students may not be aware of is that we have gone to House A and we have warned them several times. And so when we go back to House A and they get enforcement and House B gets a warning, the students don't necessarily understand because they don't have that background perspective. But in terms of parties and noise, it depends. What we may let go at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're not gonna let go at 3 o'clock in the morning on urban. It depends. If a party has 10 people and they're engaged in behavior that runs afoul of what our rules and expectations are and creates a safety risk to themselves or others, we will respond to them with enforcement, and there's a party next door with 50 people who are behaving accordingly, and they won't get any response from the police. So it all depends, and what I'm trying to do, and hopefully the message gets across to you, is when you are out in the neighborhood and you see us, we are daily trying to reduce barriers of communication. So if you have a question, flag down a police officer. Hey officer, how's our party looking? Or is the noise level too loud? Do we have too many people? Whatever. We're glad to be in the moment with you to answer those questions. That's what we want to be in terms of a resource for you.
Hi, this is a little bit of a change of pace. Regarding housing, at a previous Campus Clarity event, we were told that once the special interest houses were assigned to be taken off the property viewer website, so that everybody else could see what was left. And this might be a question that, Jim, you could answer better. But as of right tonight, I think that the special interest houses that I know were assigned are still up on the website. So I was wondering when those might be taken off, or if that was still planned.
It will probably be Tuesday, with the application open tomorrow, and then we will, honestly, students have until Tuesday to turn down special interest housing. So we don't want to take things off that get returned back to us. So on Tuesday, once the deadline closes for them to turn things back in, then we'll mark them on the website.
Thank you.
I know recently you guys had a survey about the 8A program. I'm just curious. I heard from a lot of my friends that it was more responsive than a lot of the other surveys that get put out. Are those responses going to be like both sides, like the findings from that report?
That wasn't us.
I don't think that was us.
I'm not.
Hey, but let me know and we'll ask them. I'd like to see it too. Did SGA do it? You guys do surveys all the time. You didn't do it? Find out who did it and let me know.
Just a quick update too. Tonight's Campus Clarity is focused on alcohol and public safety and St. Patrick's Day. So if we could keep the questions focused on those topics, that would be very helpful.
And Jim and Steve are here at the end too if you want to go and ask them their questions. Because again, housing is so important.
Yeah, we'll be here afterwards, so anything housing you can tell me.
Hi, I'm Michael. I just had a quick question. Do you feel that you guys kind of created this problem by upsetting the students by having St. Patrick's Day on spring break? And also, do you think that the 3 o'clock rule is going to cause a bigger problem? Because if you think about it, there's going to be about 8,000 students moving in at 3 o'clock. They're all going to try to rush here because, you know, their friends are going to be out drinking. There's also going to be landlord houses, so you can't really stop people from moving in early. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of day drink going on. So I feel there's going to be about 8,000 students trying to rush in and drop all their stuff off and party. And maybe they're not trying to party. Maybe they're just trying to move in and get ready for the first school day back.
So in answer to your question about concern about students coming back and trying to get into their residence and, you know, a lot of traffic, we have developed a pretty comprehensive plan for traffic flow in terms of cars getting into the residence hall area, the apartments, and things along those lines. So that's been something that we've been working on for about a month.
I'm Tim. I was wondering, you guys were saying that your goal is to make it safer on St. Patrick's Day, and so my question is, why? Like, what's the problem with just shutting down the street and basically maintaining like party in one area, which limits it like from everywhere else, helps the police like oversee the safety of the students, and we all get to celebrate together. What's the problem with that?
Well, a couple of issues that we have is we have to respond based upon what we see. I shared with you that just on regular days, we're taking 1 student per day to the hospital for over-intoxication. I don't want to create a situation where students are in harm's way in terms of their alcohol intoxication, and I can't get ambulances and police cars or fire trucks to students, and it's delayed. So I think that there's ample room in the student neighborhood for students to enjoy themselves in the houses that we own, as well as the privately owned houses, without creating a situation that I think makes it harder for us to get to students who need the help and observe them quicker.
I don't think we can forget that these are not our streets, right? These are the city of Dayton. There has been that question every year we've asked, so, you know, students have asked. The city is not too kindly around St. Patrick's Day at the University of Dayton either. So I don't think the city would make that possible for us. And my second part of my answer to that question is the streets got shut down anyway, right? And look what happened. So last year, the streets got shut down because it was crazy. And the situation continued to escalate, even with the streets shut down. So we are at a point where the expectation around St. Patrick's Day continues to escalate, and that's why We are trying to de-escalate. We're trying to bring the situation and the tension and the expectations around St. Patrick's Day down. We're trying to, make them proportional to the event. That's why we discussed and had a 3 o'clock opening for the residence halls. So we're not doing kegs and eggs. There's just ways we have to begin to right-size this event in proportion to what I think you all want. It got out of hand, and I am confident you all weren't there throwing rocks and stones at the police officers. So what we're trying to do with this one is we're hoping to right-size it. Yeah, please.
I was there, and a lot of the police were having a great time with all the kids.
Yeah, sure.
And we were taking pictures of them and everything. I never saw one thing get thrown unless it happened after they sent riot.
And it could be.
Down and trying to. There's a lot of young kids.
And I can tell you, it changed on a dime just like that.
But was that after you guys sent a stream of riot police after us?
I can say no, and I can point to the officers who were hit in the face before protective gear was put on, which led to the decision for me. I said, I can't have officers hit in the face with full cans of beer and not protect them. And when that behavior started, along with some other things that kind of happened in a flash, the only responsible thing to do is to allow our police officers to put on equipment to protect themselves so they can better protect you. I understand in a street, you may be standing at 123 Lowe's, and the event is taking place at 127 Lowe's, and you don't see it, and you may not be aware of it. But we watched it. Our officers felt it. The officers who were hit will tell you that yes, I was hit in the face with a full can of beer with no protection. Those things did happen.
May I just add one thing? I just want to remind everyone, if I can, that one of the things to keep in mind and to remember is that ultimately, the ultimate authority around control rests with the city of Dayton. And so we have to work very closely with the city of Dayton, and we do that for months, so that they're confident about our plans to keep students safe. Because at any point in time, they get to come in and control it. And so we try very hard to make sure that we have safety plans in place for our students so that these types of things don't happen.
So my question is just in regards to when you guys are making these big decisions, what student input is there into these decisions, and would you guys be willing to have more student input? Because like in this most recent example with the housing being closed, I know none of us knew about it until we got that email from housing. It didn't even come from the administration, it came through the housing mailbox. So is there a way that students can have more input into these decisions?
I think we had indicated previously that yes, certainly we can have more conversation with students, but this was a decision that we felt had to be made based on the highly dangerous activity that occurred last year. And so certainly we can have student input, but ultimately in this type of situation, we had to make the decision, as I said, for the reasons that we talked about. Not only because of the dangerous situation that happened last year, but also to protect students and to protect parents who are coming in to drop their students off.
So I remember 2 years ago, we all got an email saying that if we had cars in the student neighborhood that we should move them, and I don't think we got that last year, and I know that that caused a lot of issues with people jumping on cars. So I'm just wondering if you guys are going to send out something telling people to move their cars again so this doesn't happen again. And I also saw someone driving down the street last year, so it didn't seem like it was completely closed. So just
I haven't seen the full communication related to parking, but it's pretty customary that we will make that suggestion. One of the things that we were challenged with last year is due to the day, I think we had a lot of people coming in from other schools and other cities that populated the streets as well and reduced the amount of parking that was optioned for our students.
We have messaged that before. Unfortunately, we do send the message, we do highly encourage students to take their cars off the street, but unfortunately, what we see is that doesn't happen. So again, we'll say this evening, we strongly encourage you to make sure that your car's not on the street during this period of time.
So this year, St. Patrick's Day falls on Return to Campus Day. So the plan doesn't have people moving their cars completely off the street because we don't want you to park in P lot and have to walk all the way back to Lowe's with your stuff. So there isn't a plan to say don't park on the street because we want you to be able to return your stuff. The goal is that there won't be the gatherings that are going to impede you to be able to return and move into your locations.
This next question is from Twitter, and I think, although it's a little bit aggressive, I've heard this complaint from a lot of students, and I think it is, they have every right to say this. How can you justify making students pay thousands of dollars for housing and then kicking them out, leading to additional costs?
Well, I think that question is really about feeling like you have the right to enter your property anytime you want to, right? So I have to say a couple of things about that. One is, this is the university property. We are good stewards to that property, and we have to make decisions that are in the best interest of our property, of our reputation, of our students. It is our position that it is irresponsible to behave in any other way than what we're taking right now. So, I appreciate again, we're back to housing, right? Housing, and how important that is to our community. But I do remind you, as a 30-year employee, the institution is responsible for their property. And we're asking, as a landlord, we have to take precautions to assure that we are safeguarding our property and our reputation. This is a private institution that has a tremendous reputation, that students want to be here, that say incredible things, alumni who talk about this life-changing experience that you would not get at a state institution. We safeguard what that means at a private institution, and it's not over a week in St. Patrick's Day.
I would just like to add, if I may, just 2 or 3 things. One is, we are by far not the only institution that closes during spring break housing. There are many universities that do that. And secondly, I know that St. Patrick is, I know the spring break is new for you in the room, but we are simply replicating what we have done in the past. So for example, between 2000 and 2008, when there was a spring break, housing was closed, and we secured the neighborhood and secured the houses. And then thirdly, to your point, or to the point that perhaps there's some concern about notification, we have made sure that the housing contract next year is very clear about when university housing is open and when university housing is closing, and that will cover spring break.
Okay, so I have the next question, and it is from someone in the audience, and it's specifically for you, Chief. This student says, I'm curious what the policy is for taking students to Miami Valley Hospital when they are found intoxicated walking in the neighborhood. How does public safety determine at what point someone needs to be transported to the hospital?
That's a great question. Our award-winning EMS, as well as the Dayton Fire, they use what's called alert and oriented questions. So they will respond in their patient assessment of the call that they're on. If a student is generally unaware of who they are, where they are, what they are doing, and I don't know all of the 5 alert and oriented questions, but if they are scored in their assessment, and if a student does not score well on alert and oriented, there could be something beyond what is visible at the time operating behind the scenes. There could be some further intoxication going on, some other medical issue going on, but those are the basic things you need to be able to orient yourself to be able to say, I don't want any further treatment. So when you can't respond to those appropriately, that's an automatic transport. I am not an EMS certified person or an EMT, but above and beyond that, it depends. It depends on how you present, what's going on. If you can't stand or whatever you're presenting with that says, we are uncomfortable walking away and letting you go on about your business because there may be, because of fear that something will happen to you, whether it's walking out into the street or your health will further decline, you're going to be taken to the hospital.
Hi, I'm a first year student, and my question is about the freshman dorms, because like all around the neighborhood talking about all the upperclassmen is super wide loud, but like for like some big dorms like Marycrest or Stewart, what's the affection for us like moving in starts from 3 p.m. instead of 8? Like it's gonna be like super crowded compared to like the neighborhood.
Well, so, as we said, yes, yeah, no question, right? There will be folks set up for traffic that will help direct folks into it and out of it, and we do it for opening in the fall, so we will implement the same kind of process. Yep.
Follow-up question kind of regarding, I know you said you have people helping. Like I'm an orientation leader, I was one of those people helping all day long, and I haven't been asked to help, neither have the other 60 orientation leaders, we haven't been asked to help yet, so what exactly do you mean by we're going to have the same type of system as we did for Movement Day?
So, the difference between opening during an academic year and spring break is that, and while we don't need the same level of assistance, is that the orientation leaders and others were actually helping unloading entire vehicles of a year's worth of students' belongings.
With regard to traffic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we feel as though that we are appropriately staffed to manage the traffic flow between public safety and parking services. And housing and residence life staff will also be there. ROTC is also going to be helping.
So we have a person that's been waiting for like 3 turns. She's accidentally got skipped, so we're going to let her ask that question. After that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. If you guys want to go get your path credit and leave, you're totally fine to do that. If you want to stay and ask more questions, you can do that as well. You'll also get path credit at the end of that. So don't start getting ready yet. We have one more question.
Okay, hi, I'm Maria. So I'm just curious as to why we moved spring break during the actual day of St. Patty's Day, because from what I've heard and like based off of our experiences, it seems like it just made students more upset. So I'm just worried that, I mean, we're gonna probably celebrate it regardless. It's kind of one of those things though where I feel like maybe people might go crazier because they're upset because it got moved. So I was just curious, like, what was the purpose of us moving spring break to that day?
I think I can. I appreciate I appreciate the question. So certainly we are prepared if students decide they want to go crazier than they have. I'm not sure how much crazier it can get than last year. But be that as it may, what you're really speaking to is the issue about spring break over St. Patrick's Day, which really speaks to the issue of the academic calendar. So as it relates to the academic calendar is not set based upon one particular event. We don't consider spring break to be a university event or holiday. And so there are a number of factors that are taken into consideration in determining how to set the academic calendar. So for example, length of time between semesters is one example. Number 2, when Easter falls. Number 3, graduation. And so all of those dates and times are examples of factors that have to be taken into consideration when to set the academic calendar. Between 2000 and 2008, there were 2 years in which there was a spring break that did not fall on St. Patrick's Day, but the other 6 did. So it really just depends on the circumstances of the events that I just shared with you.
All right, guys. So first, can we get a round of applause for our panelists this evening? as well, can we get a round of applause for Dr. Spina, Provost Benson, and Steve for being in the audience and coming out and listening. So thank you all so much for coming to this and to every SJA event. It's been the honor of a lifetime serving as president this year, and we really appreciate everybody who came out to not only this event, but all the ones we had. With that, we're going to kick back up at about 8:08, but if you want to leave now, get PAT credit. Thank you guys so much. Also, when you guys are swiping out, this is super important because if not, you might not get credit, so you guys might want to listen to this. When you guys are swiping out, make sure you check on 1850 that it has been registered, you have been checked in, because today is also the last day to verify that all your points are correct. We are very thankful that housing extended path eligibility for this event. Just make sure you actually go into 1850 and check that it's been added to your points before you leave. Thank you.